Orphan finds a huge wooden mansion in the forest, but what she finds on the 8th floor. Ashley Carter was just 16 years old when she decided she couldn't stand another single day at St. Margaret's home in Portland. For the third time that year, she had packed her few clothes into an old backpack and escaped through the back window in the dead of night, determined to find a place where she could finally belong. It was after 2 hours of walking through the dense forest of the Cascade Range that she glimpsed through the morning mist something that made her heart race. An imposing wooden mansion rose among the ancient trees, its 8 floors forming a tower that seemed to touch the low clouds. The old yet well-kept structure exuded a mystery that instantly drew her in. Ashley stopped walking, feeling the cold dampness of the forest seep into her worn clothes. The mansion seemed abandoned at first glance, with its foggy windows and ivy covering part of the dark wooden walls. But then she noticed something that made her eyes widen in surprise. A thin wisp of white smoke rose discreetly from one of the chimneys on the top floor, indicating that someone still lived in that isolated place. Her stomach growled loudly, reminding her she hadn't eaten anything since the night before. The morning chill was beginning to seep into her bones through the thin jacket she wore. Ashley looked back, calculating how many miles she had traveled since leaving the home. There was no going back now, and even if there were, she knew that Mrs. Patricia, the director, had probably already noticed her absence and set the usual procedures in motion. With cautious steps, she approached the mansion. The main door was made of solid wood and had an old lock that didn't budge when she turned the knob. Ashley circled the building until she found a ground-floor window with one of its panes slightly ajar. After checking that no one was around, she pushed the window and managed to open it enough to slip inside. The interior was shrouded in semi-darkness and a deafening silence. Furniture covered by white sheets was scattered across what appeared to be a spacious living room. The smell of old wood mingled with a subtle scent of lavender, as if someone had taken care of the place recently. Ashley walked carefully, her sneakers making the floorboards creak softly with each step. As she moved through the room, she tripped over something on the floor. Bending down to see what it was, she discovered a pile of letters yellowed with age, all addressed to different names with post office stamps indicating addressee unknown or moved without leaving a forwarding address. The letters were from different eras, some from the 1980s, others from the 2000s. Ashley picked up one of the more recent letters and saw it was addressed to a Jennifer Wilson at the same address as the mansion. The letter had been returned just 3 months prior. Other letters had names like Christopher Anderson, Emily Thompson, and Ryan Harris. They all seemed to have lived there at some point, but for some reason no longer lived at the location. Intrigued and with her heart beating faster, Ashley decided to explore the other floors. The wooden staircase was solid and well-maintained, but groaned softly under her feet. She slowly climbed to the first floor, where she found a hallway with several doors. Opening the first one, she came upon a room that clearly belonged to a child. The room was impeccably organized, with a single bed made with a navy blue quilt, a bookshelf full of books, and toys lined up with military precision. Children's clothes were hanging in the open closet, t-shirts, pants, and shoes that seemed to belong to a child of about 8 years old. What caught Ashley's attention the most was that everything seemed to have been preserved as if the owner were going to return at any moment. She opened the other rooms on the floor and found a similar situation. Rooms perfectly organized for children of different ages, but all empty. One room had clearly feminine decor, with a porcelain doll sitting on the dresser and small dresses hanging in the closet. Another room seemed masculine, with toy cars arranged on a shelf and superhero posters on the walls. A strange feeling washed over Ashley as she realized the clothes and toys were from different eras. Some items appeared to be from the 1990s, others clearly more recent. It was as if children from several generations had lived in those rooms, but at different times. She gently touched a stuffed bear that was on one of the beds, feeling its soft, well-cared-for texture. Going up to the second floor, Ashley discovered something that made her breath quicken. An immense library occupied the entire floor, with shelves from floor to ceiling loaded with thousands of books. But they weren't ordinary books. Most dealt with topics like adoption, genealogy, searching for lost relatives, and family histories. In the center of the library was a solid wood table covered in handwritten notebooks. Ashley approached and opened one of the notebooks, discovering page after page of hand-drawn family trees with names, birth dates, and notes about people's whereabouts. The notebook seemed to be the work of someone obsessed with tracing family lineages and lost connections. Flipping through one of the thicker notebooks, Ashley felt her heart nearly stop when she saw her own last name, Carter, written on one of the branches of a complex family tree. Her hands trembled as she followed the line leading to her name, but when she turned the page to see more details, she discovered the next page had been carefully torn out. She frantically searched the other notebooks, but found no further mention of the name Carter or any clues about her own family. The absence of that specific page seemed intentional, as if someone wanted to hide important information about her origin. She sat in one of the library armchairs, trying to process what this could mean. The third floor revealed something even more disturbing. A large room was filled with old photographs hanging on the walls, showing dozens of children of different ages over the years. All the photos had been taken in the same location, in front of the mansion she had just explored. The children smiled for the camera, some shyly, others radiantly, all wearing clothes that clearly were not their own. Ashley examined the photos more closely and felt a chill run down her spine. Some of the faces seemed vaguely familiar, as if she had seen them somewhere before. Then she remembered. Some of those faces were similar to orphans she had met during her years at St. Margaret's Home and other institutions she had passed through. One photo especially caught her attention. A dark-haired girl with large eyes was holding the hand of an elderly woman in front of the mansion. The girl had an expression of happiness that Ashley recognized. It was the same expression she herself had when she finally felt safe and accepted. The photo was dated 5 years ago. On the room's table were several photo albums organized chronologically. Ashley opened the most recent album and nearly fainted upon seeing a photo of herself on the last page. The photo had been taken a few months earlier, during one of her previous attempts to run away from the home, when she had stopped to rest in a downtown Portland square. She remembered that day clearly, but didn't recall anyone taking her picture. Trembling with nervousness and confusion, Ashley quickly climbed to the 4th floor. There she found a spacious and extremely well-equipped kitchen with modern appliances that contrasted with the rustic style of the rest of the mansion. The kitchen was impeccably clean, but there were clear signs that someone had prepared a meal recently. A still warm plate sat on the kitchen table, containing a generous portion of rice, beans, grilled chicken, and vegetables. Next to the plate was a glass of orange juice and a cloth napkin folded meticulously. Ashley looked around, searching for signs of who could have prepared that meal, but the kitchen was empty. Her stomach growled violently, reminding her that she was very hungry. She hesitated for a moment, but hunger won out and she began to eat. The food was delicious and seasoned exactly the way she liked it, not too salty, with a gentle touch of garlic and herbs. It was as if whoever had prepared it knew her taste exactly. When she finished eating, Ashley opened the refrigerator looking for water and found something that made her blood run cold. Stuck to the refrigerator door with a heart-shaped magnet was a handwritten note in shaky handwriting. "Welcome, Ashley. I knew you would arrive today. When you feel ready, come up to the 8th floor. I'll be waiting." Ashley read and reread the note several times, trying to understand how it was possible for someone to know her name and predict her arrival. She hadn't told anyone about her escape, and she certainly hadn't arranged to meet anyone. The note was signed only with an initial, V. Fear and curiosity battled within her. Every fiber of her being screamed for her to flee that strange place, but an inexplicable force urged her to keep going up. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. Ashley decided to explore one more floor before making her final decision. The 5th floor revealed something that left her even more perplexed. A complete sewing studio with industrial machines, mannequins, and shelves filled with high-quality fabrics. Dozens of dresses in different sizes were hanging on organized racks, all handmade with impeccable finishes. Each dress had a small embroidered tag with different names: Mary, Anne, Jennifer, Hannah, Beatrice. The names were the same ones she had seen on the returned letters on the ground floor. Ashley examined the dresses more closely and realized they were of different styles, suitable for special occasions like graduations, job interviews, and important ceremonies. At the end of the rack was a dress that made her heart race. It was a navy blue dress, simple but elegant, with a blank tag, no name embroidered. Ashley checked the size and discovered it was exactly the number she wore. The dress seemed to have been made specifically for her, awaiting her arrival. Next to the sewing machine was an open notebook with notes about measurements and clothing specifications. Ashley flipped through the notebook and found a page with her own measurements noted with precision: height, weight, clothing size, shoe size. The notes were dated 3 weeks ago, long before she decided to run away from the home. The 6th floor brought even more astonishing revelations. A spacious study room was equipped with modern computers, textbooks organized by grade level, and framed completion certificates on the walls. The diplomas and certificates bore the same names as the photographs and the dresses, children who had apparently completed their studies and gone on to different professions. Ashley read some of the diplomas and was impressed by the variety of careers those children had pursued. There were high school completion certificates, university diplomas in medicine, law, education, engineering, and other respected professions. A frame on the wall showed a detailed timeline titled "Family Successes," spanning over 40 years. According to the timeline, children had been coming to that mansion since the 1980s, staying for a few years and then leaving to build successful lives. There were photos of graduations, weddings, births of children, and even grandchildren. It was as if the mansion were an incubator for dreams, turning abandoned orphans into accomplished professionals. A folder on the table contained thank you letters from former residents of the mansion. Ashley read a few and felt her eyes well up. The letters spoke of a woman named Mrs. Dorothy, who had changed their lives, providing education, affection, and opportunities they never imagined having. Everyone referred to her as my second mother, or the angel who saved me. The 7th floor was an even greater surprise. A comfortable living room was decorated with cozy sofas, a fireplace, and shelves full of memory albums. Ashley opened some albums and saw photos of celebrations, birthdays, graduations, and special moments lived in the mansion over the years. All the children in the photos seemed genuinely happy and prosperous. An entire wall was dedicated to recent letters from former residents, telling about their current lives. Ashley read about doctors saving lives, teachers educating new generations, lawyers defending those in need. They all attributed their success to the experience lived in that magical mansion and to the teachings of Mrs. Dorothy. In the center of the room was a special armchair with an embroidered cushion. Mrs. Dorothy's armchair, where dreams are born. Next to the armchair, a knitting basket contained several unfinished pieces, scarves, hats, and blankets in soft colors. It was evident that someone spent a lot of time there, creating pieces with love and care. Ashley sat in the armchair and felt a strange sensation of peace and belonging. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel the urge to run away. There was something about that place that calmed her restless soul and made her feel at home. But the mystery of the 8th floor and the person supposedly waiting for her up there remained. Gathering all her courage, Ashley finally headed for the stairs leading to the top floor of the mansion. The stairs were narrower than the others and creaked louder, as if few feet had stepped on them recently. With each step she climbed, she felt her heart beat faster, and a mix of fear and anticipation grow in her chest. The door to the 8th floor was slightly ajar, allowing a soft golden light to leak through the gap. Ashley could hear a rhythmic, relaxing sound coming from inside, the characteristic noise of someone knitting. She stopped in front of the door, took 3 deep breaths, and finally pushed it open slowly. What Ashley saw made her stop in the doorway, completely breathless. A lady with completely white hair was sitting in a rocking chair next to a large window that offered a panoramic view of the forest. She was calmly knitting a light blue scarf and humming a soft melody quietly. When Ashley entered, the lady looked up and smiled with a tenderness the girl had never experienced. It was a smile that said, "You've come home without uttering a word." A smile that welcomed without judging, that understood without questioning. The lady had gentle wrinkles around her eyes, which shone with deep wisdom and genuine kindness. Her movements were slow and deliberate, like someone who had learned to savor every moment of life. "Hello, Ashley," said the lady in a sweet, melodious voice, placing the knitting in her lap. "I am Mrs. Dorothy. I've been waiting for you for a long time, my dear. Please sit here with me." Ashley remained motionless in the doorway, still processing the reality of finally meeting the mysterious owner of the mansion. Mrs. Dorothy didn't seem dangerous. On the contrary, she emanated a peace and security that Ashley hadn't felt in years. But still, she was confused and a little scared. How do you know my name?" Ashley finally managed to ask, her voice coming out weaker than intended. Mrs. Dorothy smiled even wider and gestured for her to come closer. "I know many things about you, my child. I know you ran away from St. Margaret's home for the 3rd time this year. I know you are 16 and were never adopted because you came into the system too late. I know you are smart, determined, and have a heart bigger than your own sorrow." Ashley took a few hesitant steps into the room but still kept her distance. You know me?" "Not personally until now," replied Mrs. Dorothy, resuming her knitting with gentle movements. "But I have been following your situation for a few months. I have my ways of knowing when a special child needs help, and you, Ashley, are very special." The room was simple but cozy, with well-preserved antique furniture, green plants in the windows, and photographs of smiling children scattered on the shelves. A single bed was impeccably made in one corner, and Ashley noticed clothes in her size folded on it. New, good-quality clothes. "I don't understand," said Ashley, finally sitting in a chair near Mrs. Dorothy's armchair. "What is this place? Who are all those children in the photos? Why do you have information about me?" Mrs. Dorothy finished a row of the scarf before answering, as if organizing her thoughts. "This mansion has been my home for 42 years. I bought it with the savings from a lifetime of working as a social worker. But it's not just my home, Ashley. It's a home for children the system has abandoned." She paused to look out the window, watching the fog that still partially covered the forest. "You see, I worked for decades with adoptions and saw firsthand how older children are forgotten. Families want babies, not troubled teenagers. At 16, like you, the chances of adoption are practically zero." Ashley felt a lump in her throat upon hearing that cruel truth she knew all too well. "So you collect orphaned children?" "I don't collect," Mrs. Dorothy corrected gently. "I observe, I research, and when I see a special child suffering in the system, I create opportunities for them to find me, like you found me today. Every child who has passed through this mansion arrived here by their own choice, following their own instincts." Ashley thought about the series of coincidences that had led her there, her escape in the right direction, the fog that made her lose her usual path, the slightly open window of the mansion. Could it be that none of it had truly been accidental? "How many children have passed through here?" asked Ashley. 73, including you," replied Mrs. Dorothy without hesitation. "Each stayed as long as they needed to prepare for adult life. Some stayed 2 years, others 5. It depends on each story, on each need, but they all left here prepared to build dignified and prosperous lives." Ashley remembered the diplomas and certificates she had seen on the 6th floor. They studied here. They studied, yes, but they learned much more than school subjects. They learned to trust, to love, to dream. They learned they have value and deserve a full life, regardless of their origins. Mrs. Dorothy stopped knitting and looked directly into Ashley's eyes. "Just as you will learn if you choose to stay." The proposal hit Ashley like a bolt of lightning. Staying there meant stopping running, stopping searching for a family that might never exist. It meant accepting help from a stranger and trusting in something that seemed too good to be true. Her life experience had taught her to be wary of promises and kindness. "Why are you doing this?" Ashley asked, still skeptical. "What do you get out of helping abandoned orphans?" Mrs. Dorothy smiled sadly and looked out the window again. "I was an orphan too, Ashley. I spent my childhood and adolescence in homes suffering the same rejection, you know. When I finally managed to graduate in social work and build a stable life, I swore I would dedicate my existence to giving other children the opportunities I never had. She resumed her knitting, but her movements were now slower, laden with memory. I never married. I never had children of my own. But I've had 73 children of the heart who have passed through this house. Each one left a little piece of joy in my life, and I hope I left a little piece of hope in theirs. Ashley felt her eyes fill with tears. For the first time in her life, she was facing someone who truly understood her pain, someone who had walked through the same dark valley and managed to find the light at the end of the tunnel. "How did you find me?" asked Ashley, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "I have contacts in several homes in the region, old colleagues who know about my work, and let me know when they identify children who could benefit from what I offer here. Mrs. Patricia from St. Margaret's told me about you 6 months ago." Ashley was shocked. Mrs. Patricia knows about this place. She knows and approves. She also genuinely cares about the children's futures, but she works within the limitations of the system. When a child like you shows they can't adapt to the traditional home model, she discreetly informs me. Mrs. Dorothy set her knitting down and leaned forward. "Ashley, you ran away 3 times from the home, not because you're rebellious or troubled. You ran because your free spirit cannot conform to mediocrity and emotional abandonment. You're searching for something more, something true. And it is exactly that kind of search that makes a person grow and achieve their dreams." Ashley remained silent for a few minutes, processing everything she had discovered. The mansion wasn't just a refuge, it was a school of life, a second chance, an alternative family for those who never had a traditional family. But there were still doubts that bothered her. "What if I don't fit in here either?" asked Ashley in a small voice. "What if I can't be like those successful children in the pictures?" Mrs. Dorothy rose from her armchair and walked over to Ashley, placing her wrinkled but caring hands on the girl's shoulders. "My dear, there is no magic formula for success. Every child who has passed through here brought their own pains, fears, and limitations. What I offer is not a miraculous transformation, but rather time, patience, education, and most importantly, unconditional love." Ashley looked into those kind eyes and felt something she hadn't experienced in years, the feeling of being truly seen and accepted as she was. I can stay." "Of course you can, my child. In fact, I've already prepared everything for your arrival. The clothes on the bed are yours, the room is ready, and tomorrow we start planning your studies and your dreams." Mrs. Dorothy returned to her armchair. "But before anything, I need you to understand one important thing. This is not a home where you merely survive until you're 18. This is a home where you will discover yourself and prepare for an extraordinary life." Ashley felt a mix of relief and apprehension. After years of disappointments, it was hard to believe she had finally found what she had always been looking for. But the warmth of that place and the sincerity of Mrs. Dorothy touched her heart in a way she couldn't ignore. "How does it work?" asked Ashley, already allowing herself to imagine a life there. "We'll start slow," explained Mrs. Dorothy. "First, you'll rest and get settled. Then we'll talk about your dreams, your talents, and your difficulties. We'll create a personalized study plan including not just school subjects, but also practical skills for adult life." Mrs. Dorothy picked up a notebook from a nearby table and flipped through some pages. "I see here you've always had good grades in English and history, but difficulties in math and science. We have time to work on that. I also see you show an interest in social issues and enjoy helping younger classmates." Ashley was impressed with the level of detail in the information Mrs. Dorothy had about her. "You really researched my whole life." "I researched because I care," the woman replied simply. "Every child who arrives here receives my full attention. I need to understand their specific needs to help them in the best way possible." The sun was beginning to set through the window, tinting the room with golden hues. Mrs. Dorothy lit a few lamps that created an even cozier atmosphere. Ashley felt as if she were living a dream. After so many years of rejection and abandonment, she had finally found someone willing to invest in her future. "Can I ask a question?" said Ashley hesitantly. "In the library, I saw my last name on a family tree, but the next page was torn out. Do you know anything about my family?" Mrs. Dorothy's face grew more serious and she paused for a moment before answering. Yes, I researched your family origins. It's part of the process I do with all the children. Sometimes it's possible to reconnect lost families. But in your case, the situation is a bit complicated. Ashley felt her heart race. Complicated how? I found some distant relatives of yours. A great-aunt who lives in Asheville and didn't know of your existence. When she learned you were in the shelter system, Mrs. Dorothy hesitated visibly. She what? Insisted Ashley, though she already feared the answer. She said she was too old to take on the responsibility of raising a teenager, asked not to be contacted again. Mrs. Dorothy spoke gently, but the words hit Ashley like slaps to the face. Ashley felt the tears return to her eyes. Once again, she was being rejected by someone from her own family. The discovery that she had living relatives who didn't want her was even more painful than having no family at all. That's why you tore out the page, said Ashley, more as a statement than a question. That's why I tore out the page, confirmed Mrs. Dorothy. I intended to tell you when you were emotionally stronger. Family rejection is one of the deepest pains there is, and I wanted you to first feel what it's like to be accepted and loved before dealing with yet another disappointment. Ashley got up from the chair and walked to the window, looking at the forest that stretched beyond the mansion. So, I really have no one in the world. Yes, you do, said Mrs. Dorothy firmly, also standing up. You have me, you have this home, and you have all the possibilities your life can still offer. Family isn't just blood, Ashley. Family is who chooses to be by your side and invest in your happiness. Ashley remained looking out the window, trying to process this latest disappointment. It was ironic that on the same day she had found hope, she also discovered another reason to feel abandoned. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to leave a like, and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out now. Continuing, I understand if you want to leave, said Mrs. Dorothy softly. I know it's a lot to process in one day. The door is always open, Ashley. You will never be a prisoner here. Ashley turned to face the woman. What if I stay? What happens when I turn 18? Will you send me away like all the other places did? When you turn 18, you will be a grown woman prepared to live your own life with dignity and independence. I won't send you away. You will choose to leave because you'll be ready to conquer the world. Mrs. Dorothy smiled tenderly. And even after that, this will always be your home. Many who have left here come back to visit, bring their families, share their victories. Ashley looked around the cozy room, at the bed made with care, at the new clothes waiting for her. Then she looked at Mrs. Dorothy, who watched her with infinite patience, not pressing for an immediate decision. Can I stay tonight and think more tomorrow? Asked Ashley timidly. You can stay as long as you need to think, replied Mrs. Dorothy. There's no rush. Important decisions should be made calmly and with reflection. That night, Ashley took the first hot shower she'd had in weeks, put on soft new pajamas, and lay down in a comfortable bed with sheets that smelled of lavender. For the first time in a long while, she felt truly safe. The sound of the forest through the window and the certainty that Mrs. Dorothy was upstairs created a feeling of protection she had almost forgotten existed. But sleep didn't come easily. Ashley stayed awake late, thinking about everything she had discovered. Her great-aunt's rejection hurt deeply, but she was beginning to understand what Mrs. Dorothy had tried to explain about chosen family versus blood family. Perhaps it was better to be loved by someone who chose her than to be tolerated by someone obligated by family ties. The next morning, Ashley woke to the smell of fresh bread and coffee being prepared downstairs. When she went down to the kitchen, she found Mrs. Dorothy preparing a hearty breakfast: homemade bread, fresh fruit, scrambled eggs, and fresh squeezed orange juice. Did you sleep well, dear? Asked Mrs. Dorothy with a morning smile. Better than in years, Ashley answered honestly. Mrs. Dorothy, I would like to stay. I want to try. I want to see if I can become one of the successful people in your photos. Mrs. Dorothy's smile became radiant. How wonderful, Ashley. I'm sure you will not only be successful but also very happy. We have a lot of work ahead of us, but also a lot of growth and discovery. During breakfast, Mrs. Dorothy explained how the routine of the house worked. Ashley would study in the morning using a personalized program that covered both the regular curriculum and practical skills. Afternoons would be dedicated to activities like cooking, sewing, gardening, and household management. Evenings would be for reading, conversation, and relaxation. "We'll also work on your self-esteem and social skills," explained Mrs. Dorothy. "You'll learn that you are a valuable person and capable of building healthy relationships. That is fundamental for any career you choose to follow." Ashley felt hopeful for the first time in years. She had finally found someone willing to invest in her potential, to see her as more than just another troubled orphan. Mrs. Dorothy spoke about her future as if it were something bright and full of possibilities. The first weeks in the house were about adaptation and discovery. Ashley established a rigorous study routine, but found that learning was much more enjoyable when she felt supported and encouraged. Mrs. Dorothy was a patient and creative teacher, using different methods to teach subjects that Ashley had always considered difficult. During math lessons, for example, Mrs. Dorothy used practical examples from household management and personal budgeting. For science, they would do simple experiments in the kitchen and observe nature during walks through the forest. Ashley discovered she learned more easily when she could see practical applications of knowledge. The afternoons in the sewing studio became her favorite times. Mrs. Dorothy taught her not only sewing techniques, but also about the importance of dressing well for self-esteem and professional opportunities. Ashley learned to hem, adjust clothes, and even create simple pieces. The concentration required by the manual work helped calm her restless mind. After a month in the mansion, Ashley noticed significant changes in herself. She was calmer, more confident, and for the first time, she began to dream of a specific future. During evening conversations with Mrs. Dorothy, she discovered she would like to work with children, perhaps following in Mrs. Dorothy's own footsteps as a social worker. "It's a beautiful profession," said Mrs. Dorothy when Ashley shared her dream, "but it's also emotionally challenging. You need to be very well resolved within yourself to be able to help other people resolve themselves." Ashley agreed and began working even more intensively on her personal development. Mrs. Dorothy introduced her to psychology and human development books, taught her communication techniques, and helped her process her own traumatic experiences of abandonment and rejection. But not everything was perfect in the mansion. Sometimes Ashley felt lonely, especially when she saw the photos of all the other children who had passed through there. She imagined what it would be like to have company from someone her own age, someone with whom she could share her discoveries and challenges. As if Mrs. Dorothy could read her thoughts, one day she announced that another child would be arriving at the mansion soon. "It's a 12-year-old girl named Hannah," she explained. "She's been through several foster families that didn't work out. She's very emotionally hurt and will need a lot of affection and patience." Ashley felt a mix of anxiety and excitement at the news. On one hand, she was excited about the prospect of having company. On the other, she was nervous about what it would be like to share Mrs. Dorothy's attention with another person. Would she be able to be a good, big sister? When Hannah arrived at the mansion on a rainy October afternoon, Ashley immediately understood why Mrs. Dorothy had said she would need patience. The girl was small for her age, had deep dark circles under her eyes, and moved like a frightened little animal. She barely spoke and refused any kind of physical affection. "She's been through some families that didn't know how to handle her trauma," Mrs. Dorothy explained to Ashley in private. "Hannah lost her parents at age 6 and developed some defensive behaviors that scare adults. She'll need a lot of time to learn to trust again." Ashley decided she would do everything possible to help Hannah feel safe. She started small, leaving colorful drawings under the girl's bedroom door, preparing special snacks that she left in places where Hannah could find them, singing softly when she knew the girl was nearby. Gradually, Hannah began to respond to Ashley's gestures of affection. First, there were quick glances, then small, timid smiles. After 2 weeks, Hannah finally spoke to Ashley for the first time, asking for help reaching a book on a high shelf. "Thank you," said Hannah in a tiny voice, avoiding eye contact. "You're welcome," replied Ashley with a genuine smile. "If you need anything, just call me. I'm the big sister here." The word sister made Hannah's eyes widen in surprise. It was clear she wasn't accustomed to concepts of family, even chosen family. But gradually she began to get closer to Ashley, first asking for help with small things, then sitting near her during meals. Hannah's presence transformed the dynamics of the mansion in a positive way. Ashley discovered she genuinely enjoyed caring for and guiding someone younger. This awakened in her a protective instinct she didn't know she possessed and confirmed her calling to work with children in need. During Hannah's adjustment period, Ashley also learned a lot about herself. She realized she had developed a patience and emotional maturity she didn't have when she first arrived at the mansion. Mrs. Dorothy's unconditional love was truly transforming her into a more confident and capable person. Mrs. Dorothy watched with satisfaction the relationship developing between the two girls. "Ashley," she said during one of their nightly talks, "you are becoming exactly the type of person I hoped for, compassionate, strong, and generous. Hannah is flourishing under your care." Ashley blushed at the compliment. "She's special. She just needed someone who understood her pain." "Exactly like you needed when you arrived here," observed Mrs. Dorothy. "And now you are passing that same understanding on to her. That's how love multiplies, through example and generosity." As the months passed, Ashley and Hannah developed a genuine sisterly bond. Hannah began to open up more, talking about her fears and traumas, while Ashley shared her own experiences of abandonment and rejection. They discovered they had much in common, despite the age difference. Ashley naturally assumed the role of Hannah's mentor, helping her with her studies, teaching her practical skills, and most importantly, showing through her own example that it was possible to overcome a painful past and build a bright future. Hannah's transformation was remarkable. In 6 months, she went from a traumatized, withdrawn child to a confident and cheerful girl. Her gaze became more direct, her smiles more frequent, and she began to show interest in learning and growing. Mrs. Dorothy was visibly moved by the progress of both girls. "Ashley," she said one night, "you have a natural gift for education and care. I'm sure you will be an exceptional social worker." Ashley smiled, feeling a confidence in herself she had never experienced before. "It's strange to think that a year ago I was just a troubled orphan running from shelters. Now I feel useful, as if I have a purpose." "You always had a purpose, dear," replied Mrs. Dorothy. "You just needed someone to help you discover what it was." When Ashley completed 1 year at the mansion, Mrs. Dorothy organized a small celebration. It was the first time in her life that someone celebrated her presence somewhere. There was a homemade cake, handmade gifts, and a photo album documenting her growth over the year. "This is your first family anniversary," explained Mrs. Dorothy, using a term that warmed Ashley's heart. "Every year, we will celebrate the day you chose to stay and become part of this special family." Hannah, who had transformed into a joyful and affectionate girl, hugged Ashley tightly. "You're the best big sister in the world," she said with childlike sincerity. Ashley felt her eyes fill with tears of happiness. She had finally found her family, not a family by blood, but a family of the heart. And more importantly, she had discovered that she herself was capable of offering love and care to others. During the 2nd year at the mansion, Ashley began preparing more intensively for the college entrance exams. Mrs. Dorothy enrolled her in an online prep course and brought in private tutors for the most challenging subjects. Ashley studied with determination, knowing her education was the key to being able to help other children in the future. Also during this period, she began participating more actively in the administrative aspects of the mansion. Mrs. Dorothy, who was getting older, started teaching Ashley how to manage the house finances, how to make contacts with local shelters, and how to identify children who would benefit from her unique experience. "Ashley," Mrs. Dorothy said one evening, "I need to talk to you about something important." Ashley felt a knot in her stomach, fearing something bad was about to happen. "What is it, Mrs. Dorothy?" "I'm 78, dear. Although I still feel strong and capable, I know I can't continue this work forever. I've started thinking about how to ensure the mansion keeps helping children even after I'm no longer here." Ashley felt her heart race. The possibility of losing Mrs. Dorothy was terrifying. She had become much more than a caregiver. She was truly the mother Ashley had never had. What are you saying?" asked Ashley with a trembling voice. I'm saying I would like you to consider continuing my work in the future. You have everything that's needed: compassion, intelligence, personal experience, and most importantly, your heart in the right place. Mrs. Dorothy took Ashley's hands. Of course, only after you graduate and feel ready. It's not pressure, it's a proposal. Ashley was silent for several minutes, processing the magnitude of what was being offered. Continuing Mrs. Dorothy's work would mean dedicating her life to helping children like she had been. It meant transforming her own pain into strength to heal the pain of others. I would really like that, Ashley finally said, but I'm afraid I won't be as good as you. Mrs. Dorothy smiled tenderly. My dear, you're already better than me in many ways. You understand these children's pain in a way that I, even with all my experience, could never fully understand. And more importantly, you have Hannah as proof that you already know how to care for and transform lives. Ashley looked at Hannah, who was sleeping peacefully on the nearby sofa, an open book on her chest. The girl had transformed completely, from a traumatized child into someone confident and happy. And Ashley knew she had played an important role in that transformation. Would it be possible to keep the mansion running legally? Asked Ashley, always practical. I'm already arranging that, replied Mrs. Dorothy. I have lawyers working to turn this place into an official foster home. You would be formally registered as a social educator and head of the institution. The whole process will be ready by the time you graduate from college. Ashley felt a mix of excitement and overwhelming responsibility. And Hannah will stay here with us until she's ready for her own journey. And who knows, maybe in the future, she'll also want to follow this path of helping other children. The important thing is that each person finds their own purpose. That night, Ashley lay awake for hours, imagining what it would be like to run the mansion in the future. She thought of the children she could help, the lives she could transform, the legacy she could build. For the first time in her life, she had not just dreams but a concrete plan to achieve them. The following months were intense with preparation. Ashley dedicated herself even more to her studies, took online courses on social education, and began accompanying Mrs. Dorothy on her visits to shelters in the region. She met other children living in situations similar to her own past experience and began to better understand the system she intended to help transform. During one of these visits to St. Margaret's home, Ashley reconnected with Mrs. Patricia, who was impressed by her transformation. "My goodness, Ashley," exclaimed the director, "you're unrecognizable. More confident, more mature. Mrs. Dorothy truly worked miracles with you." Ashley smiled, feeling genuine pride in her journey. "She gave me the chance I needed, and now I want to give the same chance to other children." Mrs. Patricia was visibly moved. "You know, Ashley, in all my years working with orphans, I rarely see such profound transformations. You are living proof that we should never give up on a child, no matter how troubled they may seem." This conversation deeply marked Ashley. She realized that her own story could serve as inspiration and hope for other children who felt lost in the system. She decided that, when she took over the mansion, she would implement a program where former residents would return regularly to share their stories and guide new residents. When Ashley turned 18, Mrs. Dorothy organized a party even bigger than the previous year. This time, some of the mansion's former residents attended, successful young adults who had become doctors, teachers, engineers, and other professionals. They all had stories similar to Ashley's and were eager to meet Mrs. Dorothy's new daughter. "It's amazing how Mrs. Dorothy can see the potential in children everyone else has given up on," commented Dr. Michael, a former resident who was now a pediatrician. "When I arrived here at 15, I was angry at the world. She taught me that my anger could be transformed into determination to help others." Ashley heard several similar stories during the party and felt part of a very special extended family. All those successful young adults had gone through the same fears, pains, and insecurities she had experienced. This made her realize that her own journey was just the beginning of something much bigger. After the party, Mrs. Dorothy called Ashley for a private conversation on the 8th floor. "Ashley, the time has come for us to talk about your immediate future. You passed the entrance exam for social work at the State University. Classes start in March. Ashley felt a burst of joy and nervousness. She had studied so hard for that moment, but now that it had arrived, she felt intimidated by the prospect of leaving the mansion to study in the city. "Will I live on campus?" asked Ashley. "That won't be necessary. The university is only 40 minutes from here. You can commute daily. That way you can continue helping Hannah and other children who may arrive, while also getting used to your future responsibilities here." Ashley breathed a sigh of relief. The idea of leaving the mansion completely still frightened her. That place had become her safe harbor, and she didn't feel ready to leave it entirely. During the last few months before starting college, Ashley dedicated herself to learning all the practical aspects of running the mansion. Mrs. Dorothy taught her about budgeting, property maintenance, relationships with local authorities, and strategies for identifying and welcoming new children in need. Also during this period, another child arrived at the mansion, a 14-year-old boy named Nathan, who had been abandoned by his adoptive parents after they discovered he had learning difficulties. The boy was angry and distrustful of any adult who tried to get close to him. Ashley remembered her own arrival at the mansion and decided to apply with Nathan the same strategies Mrs. Dorothy had used with her. It began by respecting his space, offering help without pressure, and, most importantly, showing through her own example that it was possible to trust and open up to new possibilities. The work with Nathan was more challenging than with Hannah, since he was older and had accumulated more negative experiences. But Ashley discovered that her own experience of abandonment and rejection made her especially capable of understanding the boy's pain and finding ways to help him. "How can you be so patient with him?" Hannah asked one day, after Nathan had an outburst of anger during dinner. "Because I understand his pain," Ashley replied. "When I arrived here, I was also furious with the world. The difference is that Mrs. Dorothy was patient with me, so now I can be patient with Nathan." Gradually, Nathan began to respond to the care of Ashley and Mrs. Dorothy. His anger transformed into determination to overcome his learning difficulties, and he began to demonstrate unique talents in areas like art and music. Ashley felt proud to see another child flourishing in the loving environment of the mansion. When the time finally came for Ashley to start college, she was nervous but excited. The first day was intimidating. She had never studied at such a large institution, with so many classmates from different backgrounds. But she quickly discovered that her unique experience at the mansion gave her a valuable perspective on social issues. During classes, Ashley often shared insights based on her personal experience and the work she observed Mrs. Dorothy doing. Her teachers were impressed by her maturity and practical understanding of the theoretical concepts they were learning. Ashley, her developmental psychology professor, said one day after class, "Your contributions in class are exceptional. You have an intuitive understanding of trauma and recovery processes that often takes years to develop academically." Ashley briefly explained her situation, and the professor was even more impressed. "You should consider specializing in work with children in institutional care. There is a desperate need for professionals who truly understand that reality." Ashley smiled, knowing she had already chosen exactly that specialization. Her life experience had been painful, but now she could see how each difficulty had contributed to shaping the professional she was becoming. The college years passed quickly. Ashley maintained an intense routine, classes during the day, studying at night, and on weekends helping Mrs. Dorothy with the mansion's activities. During this period, a few more children passed through the home, and Ashley had the opportunity to practice and refine her care and guidance skills. One of the most memorable experiences was with a 15-year-old girl named Madison, who had lived on the streets for 2 years before arriving at the mansion. Madison had developed serious trust issues and self-destructive behaviors that challenged both Ashley and Mrs. Dorothy. "Sometimes I feel like I'm not making a difference with her," Ashley confessed to Mrs. Dorothy after a particularly difficult argument with Madison. "The healing process isn't linear, my dear," Mrs. Dorothy replied wisely. "Madison is testing our love and patience because she has never experienced unconditional love. When she finally understands that we are here to stay, regardless of her behavior, that's when the real transformation will begin." Mrs. Dorothy was right. After months of patience and consistency, Madison finally began to open up. She revealed deep traumas she had suffered on the streets and began to work through her pain with the help of Ashley and Mrs. Dorothy. Her transformation was slow but genuine, and she became one of the most grateful and affectionate children who had ever passed through the mansion. When Ashley was in her third year of college, Mrs. Dorothy began to show signs that her age was weighing on her. Although she was still mentally sharp and emotionally strong, her physical energy had visibly diminished. She began transferring more responsibilities to Ashley, gradually preparing her to take full command. "Ashley," said Mrs. Dorothy one afternoon while knitting in her favorite armchair, "the time has come to formalize your position here. The legal documents are ready to transfer the property of the mansion to you when you graduate. Do you feel prepared for this responsibility?" Ashley felt a mix of honor and the weight of responsibility. "I feel I was born for this, Mrs. Dorothy, but I'm also scared by the idea of doing it without you around. I will always be around, dear. Maybe not physically forever, but everything I've learned in 40 years of work is inside you now, and you have something I never had, the lived experience of having been one of these children." Ashley lowered her head, moved by the trust Mrs. Dorothy placed in her. "I promise I will honor everything you've taught me and keep the legacy you built here alive." "I don't want you to just maintain my legacy, Ashley. I want you to build your own legacy, improving and expanding what we started here. Each generation should surpass the previous one." During her final year of college, Ashley developed a capstone project on alternative models of care for adolescents in vulnerable situations. Her project documented the unique model of Mrs. Dorothy's mansion and proposed ways to replicate it in other regions. The project made a significant impact at the university and caught the attention of government authorities and non-governmental organizations interested in innovative models of childcare. Ashley was invited to present her work at conferences and seminars, beginning to establish herself as a respected voice in the field. "I am so proud of you," said Mrs. Dorothy after one of Ashley's presentations. "You have not only learned to transform your own life, but you are helping to transform an entire system." Ashley smiled, feeling she had finally found her true calling. "I learned from the best teacher there is. Now, I want to take that learning to as many children as possible." When Ashley graduated in social work, Mrs. Dorothy organized the biggest celebration the mansion had ever seen. Former residents came from various cities to attend, local authorities were present, and even some university professors showed up. It was a celebration not only of Ashley's personal achievement, but also of the validation of the unique model Mrs. Dorothy had developed. During the ceremony, Mrs. Dorothy gave an emotional speech. "Today we are not just celebrating Ashley's graduation, we are celebrating living proof that every child, no matter their origin or circumstances, deserves a chance to shine. Ashley arrived here as a rejected orphan and has become an exceptionally qualified social educator. She is the embodiment of everything I believe in." Ashley cried with emotion upon hearing those words. She had come a long and difficult way since that foggy morning when she first saw the mansion. Now she was officially prepared to continue the work that had changed her own life. Dear listener, if you are enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we are just starting out. Now, continuing. In the months following graduation, Ashley gradually assumed full leadership of the mansion. Mrs. Dorothy remained as an advisor and maternal figure, but Ashley made all operational decisions. She implemented some innovations based on her academic background, but always maintained the fundamental principles that Mrs. Dorothy had established. One of the first changes Ashley implemented was creating a mentorship program where former residents of the home returned regularly to guide the current children. Dr. Michael, the pediatrician, began offering free medical care. Sarah Michelle, who had become a lawyer, helped with legal issues. Each former resident contributed their professional skills. "It's amazing how our family keeps growing," commented Hannah, now 16 and one of the most active volunteers at the home. She had decided to pursue education and already showed a natural talent for working with younger children. Ashley smiled, seeing how Hannah had developed. From a traumatized and withdrawn girl, she had become a confident and compassionate teenager who helped other children overcome their own traumas. It was proof that the home's model really worked. Nathan, now 17, had overcome his learning difficulties and developed an exceptional talent for art. His paintings decorated several walls of the home, and he had begun selling some pieces to contribute to the household expenses. He too showed interest in eventually working with children in need. Madison, who had arrived as a rebellious teenager from the streets, was now preparing to enter university. She wanted to study psychology and specialize in working with homeless youth. Her transformation had been one of the most dramatic Ashley had witnessed. Over time, Ashley's work began to attract attention beyond the local region. Government officials visited the home to study its operational model, and Ashley was invited for consultations on public policies for children and adolescents. "Ashley," said the State Secretary of Social Assistance during an official visit, "your care model is producing exceptional results. We are interested in replicating this approach in other locations. Would you be willing to train other teams?" Ashley was moved by the possibility of expanding the reach of her work. Of course, the more children we can help, the better. Thus began a new phase in Ashley's life. In addition to managing the home, she began traveling across the state training social educators and helping establish care homes based on the model she had learned from Mrs. Dorothy. Her name began to be recognized nationally as one of the leading authorities in alternative care for teenagers. During one of these consulting trips, Ashley received a call that would change her life once again. It was from her great-aunt in Asheville, the same one who had rejected any contact years before. "Ashley," said a trembling voice on the phone, "my name is Eleanor Carter. I am your great-aunt. I know I have no right to call after so long, but I need to talk to you." Ashley felt her heart race. After so many years, why was her great-aunt getting in touch? "Hello, Mrs. Eleanor. What can I do for you? I read about your work in the city newspaper. I saw that you've become a respected social educator and that you work with orphaned children. I wanted to apologize and say that I deeply regret having rejected contact with you years ago." Ashley fell silent, processing the conflicting emotions the call had stirred. Part of her still felt pain from the initial rejection, but another part felt curious about this relative who had finally decided to reach out. "Why did you change your mind?" asked Ashley carefully. "Because I realized I made a terrible mistake. When I learned of your existence, I was afraid I wouldn't be able to properly care for a teenager. But now I see I missed the opportunity to know an extraordinary niece. You've become exactly the kind of person our family can be proud of." Ashley took a deep breath. "Mrs. Eleanor, I appreciate your words and your regret, but you need to understand that I've already built my own family. I have a heart mother, heart siblings, and a life purpose that fulfills me." "I understand," said Mrs. Eleanor sadly. "I'm not asking you to accept me as family. I would just like the chance to get to know you and perhaps help with your work in some way. I have some financial resources and would like to contribute to your cause." Ashley was surprised by the proposal. "You would like to contribute financially to the home?" "Yes. I read about the wonderful work you all do. I would like to make a substantial donation and establish a permanent fund to ensure the project's continuity. It's the least I can do to make up for my previous mistake." Ashley discussed the proposal with Mrs. Dorothy, who encouraged her to accept. "The money can help our cause greatly, Ashley, and perhaps it's a way for Mrs. Eleanor to find her own redemption. Everyone deserves a second chance." Ashley agreed to meet with her great-aunt. The meeting was emotionally complex. There was sadness for the lost time, but also gratitude for the opportunity to expand the home's work. Mrs. Eleanor kept her promise and made a generous donation that allowed for several improvements to the home's physical structure and the creation of a scholarship fund for former residents. "I can't change the past," said Mrs. Eleanor during her visit to the home, "but I can help ensure more children have the opportunities you created for yourself." Ashley thanked her for the contribution, but maintained clear boundaries in the relationship. Mrs. Eleanor became an important financial collaborator, but Ashley never considered her part of her true family. Her family was Mrs. Dorothy, Hannah, Nathan, Madison, and all the other children who had passed through the home. With the additional resources, Ashley was able to expand the work's reach even further. The home was modernized with new equipment and facilities, and they were able to accommodate a larger number of children at once. Ashley also established a post-exit follow-up program offering ongoing support for former residents during their first years of independent living. When Ashley turned 25, the home had already helped over 100 children throughout its history. Her birthday party became an annual reunion where former residents gathered to celebrate and share their achievements. It was always moving to see how each person had found their own path to success and fulfillment. During the party, Mrs. Dorothy, now 83 but still mentally sharp, gave a speech that moved everyone. When Ashley arrived here 9 years ago, I knew there was something special about her, but not even in my most optimistic dreams did I imagine she would become such an extraordinary leader and expand our work so impressively. She has exceeded all my expectations. Ashley hugged her heart-mother with tears in her eyes. I only became who I am because you believed in me when no one else did. And now you're giving the same chance to hundreds of other children, replied Mrs. Dorothy. The cycle of love keeps multiplying through you. One of the most emotional moments of the party was when Hannah, now a graduate in education, officially announced she would join Ashley as co-director of the home. Nathan had also decided to major in art therapy, to work specifically with traumatized children. The family of the mansion was literally reproducing through the generations. It's as if we're creating a dynasty of caregivers, joked Dr. Michael during his speech. Each generation that passes through here becomes the mentor for the next. It's an incredible model of sustainable growth. Ashley smiled, recognizing the truth in those words. The mansion had become much more than a home for orphans. It was an incubator for future professionals dedicated to transforming lives. The legacy that Mrs. Dorothy had begun was multiplying in ways none of them had initially imagined. Over the years, the mansion's model was replicated in 12 different cities, always with former residents or people trained by Ashley in leadership. Each new unit maintained the fundamental principles of unconditional love, quality education, and comprehensive preparation for adult life, but adapted the methods to specific local needs. Ashley became a sought-after speaker at national and international conferences on childcare. Her personal story of transformation, combined with her professional expertise, made her a powerful voice in advocating for the rights of institutionalized children. The difference between a child who gets lost in the system and one who thrives, Ashley often said in her talks, is not in the circumstances of their origin, but in the quality of love and opportunities they receive. Every child has extraordinary potential. Our responsibility is to create environments where that potential can flourish. One of the most ambitious projects Ashley developed was an exchange program where youths from different group homes spent periods in each other's homes, expanding their perspectives and creating a national network of mutual support. The program was so successful, it was adopted as public policy in several states. When Ashley turned 30, she had become one of the most recognized social educators in the country. She received several governmental and academic honors, but always maintained that her greatest pride was the transformed lives of the children who had passed through the mansions. During her 30th birthday celebration, a special surprise was in store. Madison, who was now a licensed psychologist working with homeless youth, had organized a book with testimonials from all the children Ashley had helped over the years. This book, Madison said during the presentation, tells the story of how a rejected orphan became the heart mother of hundreds of children. Every testimonial here is proof of the extraordinary impact Ashley has made on our lives. Ashley flipped through the book with tears in her eyes, reading stories of former residents who were now doctors, teachers, lawyers, artists, entrepreneurs, and parents. Each story told how their time in the mansion had been fundamental to their personal and professional transformation. One of the testimonials that moved her most was from a boy named John, who had arrived at the mansion at 15, completely rebellious and considered beyond help by the system. Now he was a social educator, working with juvenile offenders, and attributed his entire life change to the love and patience he had received from Ashley and her team. Ashley taught me that my anger could be transformed into a passion for social justice, John wrote. Today I use my own experience to help other young people who are in the same dark place I was. She didn't just save my life, She taught me to save the lives of others." That night, after the party, Ashley went up to the 8th floor where Mrs. Dorothy, now 88 years old, still spent her afternoons knitting and watching the forest through the window. Though her mobility was limited, her mind remained sharp and her wisdom deeper than ever. "Mrs. Dorothy," said Ashley, sitting in the same chair she had sat in when she was a frightened teenager, "sometimes I wonder what would have happened to me if I hadn't found this mansion that morning." Mrs. Dorothy smiled, her hand still skillfully moving her knitting needles. "But you did find it, my dear, and it was no coincidence. People with good hearts always find their way to where they need to be." "Do you really believe that? That it was fate?" "I believe it was love," replied Mrs. Dorothy. "Love has a magnetic force that draws the right people at the right times. You were searching for true love, and love brought you here." Ashley reflected on those words. In all the years since she had arrived at the mansion, she had experienced and witnessed so many meaningful coincidences. Children arriving exactly when they needed it most, the right people appearing to help when necessary, opportunities arising when they were most crucial. "Perhaps you're right," said Ashley. "Perhaps love really does have a force of its own that guides people to where they can give and receive the most love." "And now you are part of that force," said Mrs. Dorothy, stopping her knitting to look directly at Ashley. "How many children have been guided to you the same way you were guided to me?" Ashley thought of the dozens of children who had come to the mansion over the years, each with their own story of pain and search for belonging. Each had found there not just shelter, but genuine transformation, and now many of them were spreading that same love to others. "It's like a chain reaction," observed Ashley. "The love you planted in me has multiplied and continues to spread through all the lives we touch." "Exactly," agreed Mrs. Dorothy, "and that is why I can leave in peace, knowing the work will continue to grow far beyond what I could do alone." Ashley felt a tightening in her heart. Mrs. Dorothy had been her emotional anchor for so long that it was hard to imagine life without her. "You'll be here with us for a long time yet." "Perhaps, perhaps not. But when my time to leave comes, you will be more than ready to carry on, and Hannah will be ready to help you, and Nathan and Madison and all the others who have passed through here. The legacy is secure." Ashley held Mrs. Dorothy's wrinkled hand, feeling the wisdom and love that had shaped her own life flowing through that touch. "I promise I will honor everything you taught me and continue expanding this work to help as many children as possible." "I don't want you to just honor what I taught," said Mrs. Dorothy with a smile. "I want you to go beyond, to innovate, to improve. Each generation must surpass the previous one. You have already done things I never imagined possible." In the following years, Ashley continued expanding and innovating the work started by Mrs. Dorothy. She established partnerships with universities to research and document the unique methods developed at the mansion, created a training institute for social educators, and even began exporting the model to other countries interested in alternative approaches to childcare. One of the most significant projects Ashley developed was a prevention program where trained teams identified families in vulnerable situations and offered support before children needed to be removed from their homes. The program significantly reduced the number of children entering the foster care system in the region. "It's always better to keep a family together when possible," Ashley would explain in her presentations about the prevention program. "But when separation is unavoidable, we must ensure that the child receives not only basic care, but genuine love and real opportunities for growth." When Ashley turned 35, she had established herself as one of the world's leading authorities in alternative care for children and adolescents. She received invitations to advise public policies in several countries and became a consultant for international organizations. But despite all the professional recognition, Ashley never lost sight of her fundamental mission, transforming lives one child at a time. Every morning she still walked the halls of the original mansion, talking with the children, joining meals, and offering the same kind of personal attention she had received from Mrs. Dorothy. "Why don't you delegate more of these daily tasks?" asked a journalist during an interview. "With all your administrative and consulting responsibilities, wouldn't it be more efficient to focus on strategic matters?" Because the heart of this work is in the direct relationship with the children, Ashley replied without hesitation. If I lost that contact, I would also lose the essence of what we do here. Every child needs to know they are seen, valued, and loved individually. You cannot delegate love. It was during this period that Ashley faced one of her greatest challenges. Hannah, now co-director of the mansion, and one of the most important people in her life, announced she was getting married and wanted to start her own family. Although Ashley was happy for Hannah's happiness, she also felt worried about the prospect of losing her closest partner. "Ashley," said Hannah during a heartfelt conversation, "you gave me everything I needed to become the person I am today. Now, I want to build my own family and pass that love on to my children. But that doesn't mean I'm abandoning the work here." Ashley understood and supported Hannah's decision, though she felt a pang of nostalgia. It was natural that the people she had helped raise would follow their own paths. In fact, it was proof of her work's success that they felt prepared to build independent and prosperous lives. "I am so proud of you," Ashley said, hugging Hannah. "You've transformed from a frightened girl into a strong, independent woman. Now you're going to be a wonderful mother. And you will be the most special aunt in the world to my children," Hannah replied with tears in her eyes. "They will grow up knowing about this magical place where special people like you transform lives." Hannah's wedding was celebrated at the mansion itself, with the participation of dozens of former residents who came from all over the country for the celebration. Mrs. Dorothy, now 91 and in a wheelchair, still managed to attend the ceremony, knitting a special scarf as a wedding gift. During the party, Ashley watched with emotion as all those people who had arrived at the mansion as abandoned and traumatized children now formed a large extended family of prosperous and fulfilled adults. Doctors, teachers, artists, entrepreneurs, parents, all united by the love they had received and learned to pass on. "It's amazing, isn't it?" said Nathan, now a respected art therapist, approaching Ashley during the party. "From this family of the heart, so many other biological families have been born. Love truly multiplies exponentially." Ashley agreed, thinking about how each person who had passed through the mansion was now spreading love and opportunities in their own communities. Mrs. Dorothy's impact had become truly global through this network of transformed people. 2 years after Hannah's wedding, Ashley received news that would change her life once again. Hannah was pregnant and wanted Ashley to be the godmother and second mother to her daughter. It was an honor that deeply touched Ashley's heart. "I want my daughter to grow up knowing you as I know you," Hannah said during the pregnancy announcement. "I want her to understand from a young age that family is about love and choice, not just blood." When little Dorothy was born, named in honor of Mrs. Dorothy, Ashley experienced a love different from anything she had felt before. It was the love of a chosen aunt, of a grandmother of the heart, of someone who had helped raise the mother and would now witness a new generation grow. Mrs. Dorothy, despite her advanced age, was radiant upon meeting her namesake. "Now I know the legacy is truly secure," she said, holding the baby with trembling but careful hands. "This child will grow up in a family that knows the value of unconditional love." Ashley became a constant presence in little Dorothy's life, visiting regularly and participating in all the important milestones of her growth. It was comforting to see a child grow up in an environment of stable love from birth, something she herself had never experienced. When little Dorothy turned 2, Mrs. Dorothy, now 93, called Ashley for a final conversation on the 8th floor of the mansion. "Ashley, my dear daughter," said Mrs. Dorothy in a weak but still affectionate voice, "the time has come for me to say goodbye. I have lived a long and full life, and now I can leave knowing the work we began together will continue for generations." Ashley felt her heart shatter. Although she knew this moment would come eventually, she never felt truly prepared to lose her mother of the heart. "Mrs. Dorothy, you are everything I have. I don't know how I will go on without your advice and wisdom." "You have far more than you realize," replied Mrs. Dorothy, taking Ashley's hands. "You have a whole family you have created, a legacy you have built, and a purpose that will always guide you. Moreover, you have something I never had, the experience of having been one of those children. That makes you an even better educator than I ever was," Ashley cried, holding Mrs. Dorothy's hands. You saved my life and taught me to save the lives of others. How can I ever thank you for that?" "Keep saving lives," said Mrs. Dorothy with one last radiant smile. "Keep loving unconditionally. Keep believing that every child deserves a chance to shine. That is the only thanks I need." Mrs. Dorothy passed away peacefully in her sleep 3 days later, at 93. Her funeral was a celebration of an extraordinary life, with hundreds of people who had been touched by her love over more than 5 decades of work. Ashley organized the funeral as Mrs. Dorothy would have wanted, a celebration of gratitude and hope, not a moment of sadness. Former residents of all ages traveled from across the country to pay their respects, each sharing how Mrs. Dorothy had changed their lives. "She taught us that family is not about blood, but about choice and love," said Dr. Michael during his eulogy. "Mrs. Dorothy chose each one of us, and now we must continue choosing each other and always choosing love." During the burial, Ashley found a letter that Mrs. Dorothy had left specifically for her. In the letter, she explained that she had chosen Ashley not just as a successor, but as the daughter she never had biologically. "Ashley," the letter read, "you were much more than a child I helped. You became the daughter I always dreamed of having. Watching you grow up, graduate, and become the extraordinary woman you are today was the greatest gift life gave me. Now I trust you to continue the work, and more importantly, to be happy. You deserve all the joy life can offer." The letter ended with one final instruction. "In my room under the bed, there is a box with all the thank you letters I received over the years. I want you to read them when you feel discouraged or question whether it's worth continuing. They will remind you of the extraordinary impact we make on people's lives." Ashley found the box and discovered hundreds of letters from former residents telling about their lives, their successes, their families. Each letter was tangible proof that their work had been worthwhile, that every child saved had become an adult capable of spreading love and opportunities to others. After the funeral, Ashley spent a few days in mourning, processing the loss of her most important mother figure. But gradually, she found strength in the certainty that Mrs. Dorothy would live forever through the work they would continue doing and the lives they would keep transforming. With Hannah now focused on her family, Ashley promoted Nathan to co-director of the home. Nathan, who had become an art therapist specializing in childhood trauma, brought a unique perspective to the work. Together, they continued innovating and expanding the methods established by Mrs. Dorothy. "You know," Nathan said during one of their first meetings as co-directors, "sometimes I think about what my life would be like if I hadn't come to this home. I'd probably be lost somewhere with no direction or purpose." "And now you're helping other children find their direction and purpose," Ashley replied. "That's how the cycle continues. Each person we save eventually becomes someone who saves others." 5 years after Mrs. Dorothy's death, Ashley had expanded the network of homes to 23 units spread across the country. Each unit was run by former residents or people trained directly by Ashley, ensuring the core principles were maintained. The model had also been adapted and implemented in 6 different countries, always with Ashley serving as the lead consultant. She became a respected international figure, regularly invited to speak at prestigious universities and world conferences on children's rights. But despite all the international recognition, Ashley never lost sight of her original mission. Every week, she still spent time directly with the children at the original home, maintaining the tradition established by Mrs. Dorothy of getting to know each child and their individual story personally. During one of these weekly sessions, Ashley met a 15-year-old girl named Jessica, who had just arrived at the home. The girl was rebellious and distrustful, exactly as Ashley had been so many years ago. "Why do you care?" Jessica asked during her first conversation with Ashley. "You don't know me. Why would you waste your time on me?" Ashley smiled, remembering asking Mrs. Dorothy the same question decades ago. "Because I was exactly where you are now. I know how much it hurts to feel rejected and abandoned, and I also know that with love and opportunities, you can become anything you dream of." "How can you be so sure?" Jessica continued skeptically. "Because I've seen it happen hundreds of times," Ashley replied confidently, "including with myself. When I arrived here, I was a rebellious orphan who had run away from shelters 3 times. Now I run a network of homes that has transformed thousands of lives. If I could do it, so can you." Jessica fell silent, processing Ashley's words. Slowly, her defensive expression began to soften. You were really an orphan like me?" "I was. And I can tell you my whole story if you'd like. But first, how about you tell me yours? I want to know Jessica, not just her file from the home." During the following weeks, Ashley worked patiently with Jessica, using all the techniques she had learned from Mrs. Dorothy and perfected over the years. Gradually, the girl began to open up and trust, following the same pattern of transformation Ashley had witnessed so many times. "It's amazing," said Nathan, observing Jessica's progress. "Even after all these years, you still have the same magic touch that Mrs. Dorothy had. It's as if love were a skill you've perfected through practice." Ashley reflected on Nathan's comment. Perhaps he was right. Perhaps love really was a skill that could be developed and perfected. She had started as a recipient of Mrs. Dorothy's love and gradually transformed into a distributor of that love to others. "I think the key is to always remember where we came from," said Ashley. "I can never forget what it was like to be in these children's shoes. That keeps me humble and compassionate." A year later, Jessica had completely transformed. From a rebellious and distrustful teenager, she became a confident young woman interested in studying medicine to work with children in vulnerable situations. Her transformation was further proof that the model developed by Mrs. Dorothy and perfected by Ashley really worked. When Ashley turned 40, she reflected on the extraordinary journey she had lived. From a rejected orphan who ran away from homes, she had become an internationally recognized social educator who had transformed thousands of lives. During the birthday party, organized by former residents who traveled from all over the world to attend, Ashley gave an emotional speech. "You are all living proof that it doesn't matter where we start in life. What matters is who we meet along the way and how we choose to use our experiences to help others." Little Dorothy, now 7 years old, climbed onto the stage and handed Ashley a drawing she had made especially for her. The drawing showed the mansion surrounded by smiling children of different ages, all holding hands. At the top, written in a child's handwriting, it said, "For Aunt Ashley, thank you for giving love to everyone." Ashley cried upon receiving the drawing, realizing that a new generation was growing up with a natural understanding of the value of unconditional love and the importance of helping others. "You know," said Hannah later, watching Ashley play with her daughter, "sometimes I think you should have your own biological children. You would be a wonderful mother." Ashley smiled, looking around the party full of people she considered her children of the heart. "I have hundreds of children," she replied. "They may not have come from my womb, but they came from my heart. And that is more than enough for me." In the following years, Ashley continued expanding and innovating the work started by Mrs. Dorothy. She established an international exchange program where young people from different countries spent time in each other's mansions, creating a true global family of people dedicated to transforming lives. She also created a research institute dedicated to studying and documenting effective methods of alternative care for children. The institute became a world reference, producing research that influenced public policies in dozens of countries. But perhaps her most significant innovation was the Children of the Heart program, where adults who had grown up in homes or mansions became mentors to children still in the system. The program created a unique support network based on the mutual understanding of the shared experience. The strength of this program, Ashley would explain in her talks, lies in the fact that children see in their mentors living proof that it's possible to overcome a difficult past and build a bright future. It's hope made tangible in human form. When Ashley turned 45, she had established herself as one of the world's leading authorities on alternative childcare. She received honors from universities, governments, and international organizations, but she always maintained that her greatest pride was the transformed lives of the people who had passed through the big house. During a ceremony where she received an international award for her humanitarian work, Ashley gave a speech that summarized her life philosophy. "We don't choose where we're born or the circumstances of our childhood, but we can choose what we do with our experiences. We can use our pain to create more pain, or we can transform it into compassion that heals other people's pain. The audience, composed of world leaders and humanitarian organizations, rose in a standing ovation that lasted several minutes. But Ashley knew that the true recognition of her work wasn't in the awards or applause, but in the hundreds of letters she regularly received from former residents telling about their prosperous and happy lives. One of these letters, received shortly before her birthday, was particularly special. It came from Jessica, who had graduated from medical school and had just opened a free clinic for children in vulnerable situations. "Dear Ashley," the letter said, "remember when you asked me how you could be sure I would make it? Now I understand. You were sure because you had seen the transformation happen so many times it became predictable. Now I see the same transformation in the children I treat at my clinic. Love really is a predictable, transformative force when applied with consistency and patience." Ashley smiled as she read the letter, remembering the rebellious teenager Jessica had been and the compassionate doctor she had become. It was one more confirmation that the model developed by Mrs. Dorothy and perfected by successive generations really worked. That evening, Ashley went up to the 8th floor of the original big house, where she still kept a simple office. She sat in the same armchair where Mrs. Dorothy used to knit and looked out the window at the forest stretching beyond the house. 29 years had passed since that foggy morning when she first saw the big house. A lost orphan had become a world leader. A rejected girl had transformed into a heart mother to thousands. A young woman with no prospects had built a legacy that would last for generations. "Thank you, Mrs. Dorothy," Ashley murmured to the starry night. "Thank you for teaching me that family is about choice and love. Thank you for showing me that our story doesn't define our destiny. And thank you for trusting me to continue this work." A gentle breeze came through the window, swaying the curtains as if it were a loving response. Ashley felt a deep peace fill her heart, knowing she had honored the trust placed in her and built something even greater than Mrs. Dorothy had imagined. The next day, Ashley was surprised by the arrival of a new child at the big house, a 14-year-old boy named Tyler, who had been found living alone on the streets after running away from several shelters. When Ashley saw him for the first time, she immediately recognized the look of pain and distrust she knew so well. "Hi, Tyler," Ashley said with the same welcoming smile Mrs. Dorothy had given her so many years ago. "I'm Ashley. I know you've been through some very hard times, but you're safe now. How about we talk a little?" Tyler looked at her with distrust, exactly as Ashley had looked at Mrs. Dorothy the first time. "Why should I trust you? All adults lie." "You're right to be suspicious," Ashley replied with understanding. "I also distrusted everyone when I was younger, but I can tell you my story if you want. I also lived on the streets and ran away from homes." Tyler's interest was piqued. You lived on the streets?" "Yes, I did. And I ran away from homes 3 times before I found this place. I know exactly how you feel, lost, rejected, angry at the world. But I also know those feelings can be turned into strength to build an extraordinary life." Over the following weeks, Ashley worked patiently with Tyler, using all the techniques she had learned and developed over the years. Gradually, the boy began to trust and open up, following the same pattern of transformation she had witnessed hundreds of times. "It's like watching a miracle repeat itself," Nathan remarked, observing Tyler's progress. "Every child who arrives here goes through the same journey, from distrust to love, from anger to hope, from despair to dreams." "It's not a miracle," Ashley replied. "It's the consistent application of unconditional love. When a child finally experiences true love, they naturally flourish. That's how we were made to grow." Tyler became one of the most dramatic transformations Ashley had witnessed. In 6 months, he went from a rebellious street kid to a young student interested in becoming a social educator. His change was so remarkable that he began helping with other children arriving at the mansion. "Ashley," Tyler said one day, "I want to do the same work you do. I want to help kids like I was." Ashley smiled, recognizing in Tyler's determination the same fire that had driven her own transformation. "I'm sure you'll be an exceptional educator, Tyler. You understand these children's pain because you've lived that pain." "Exactly like you understood my pain when I arrived here," Tyler observed with wisdom beyond his years. Ashley reflected on Tyler's comment. It was true. Each generation of children transformed by the mansion eventually became capable of transforming the next generation. Love multiplied exponentially through this chain of care and transformation. That night, Ashley wrote in her personal journal, "Today I fully understood what Mrs. Dorothy meant when she spoke about the legacy being secured. It's not just about me or any specific person continuing the work. It's about a philosophy of love and transformation that self-replicates through every life touched. Tyler will be an educator because he was educated with love. His future students will become educators because they will be educated with love. The cycle is endless." Years later, when Tyler graduated in education and opened his own mansion in another city, Ashley understood she had witnessed more than a personal transformation. She had witnessed the evolution of a social movement based on the transformative power of unconditional love. "You know," Tyler said during the opening ceremony of his mansion, "when I was a street kid, I thought the world was a cruel place where only the strongest survive. Ashley taught me that the world can be transformed when strong people choose to use their strength to protect and nurture the most vulnerable." Ashley watched the ceremony with tears of pride in her eyes, knowing she had fulfilled her mission to multiply Mrs. Dorothy's legacy. The love she had received was now spreading through Tyler to a new generation of children in need. When Ashley turned 50, her network of mansions had grown to over 100 units spread across the world. Each unit was run by former residents or people trained in the philosophy of unconditional love, established by Mrs. Dorothy and developed by Ashley. During the grand celebration of her 50th birthday, which became an international gathering of the entire family created by the grand houses over the years, Ashley gave a speech that summarized her journey. 34 years ago, I was a lost orphan in the forest who found a mysterious mansion. Today, we are a global family of thousands, united by the love we received and passed on. We have proven that family isn't about blood. It's about choice, love, and mutual commitment. The audience, composed of hundreds of former residents of all ages, their biological and adoptive families, and collaborators from around the world, erupted in applause that lasted over 10 minutes. It was a celebration not only of Ashley's birthday, but of the living proof that unconditional love can transform the world one life at a time. During the party, young Dorothy, now 15 and clearly following in her Aunt Ashley's footsteps, presented a school project on the history of our family. The project documented 3 generations of transformation: Mrs. Dorothy saving Ashley, Ashley saving hundreds of children, and those children now saving thousands of others. "The conclusion of my project," said Dorothy with the confidence of a teenager who grew up surrounded by love, "is that love is the world's only truly renewable force. The more we use, the more we have. We hand our family as proof that one person with enough love can change the entire world." Ashley embraced her heart niece, moved to see a new generation that had grown up naturally, understanding the values she had spent a lifetime learning. Dorothy represented the hope that the next generation would be even more compassionate and effective in transforming lives. That night after the party, Ashley once again climbed to the 8th floor of the original mansion. The room had now been transformed into a small museum dedicated to the memory of Mrs. Dorothy, but Ashley still kept an armchair there where she liked to go to reflect on her journey. Looking out the window at the forest illuminated by the full moon, Ashley thought about the extraordinary journey she had lived. From a rejected and abandoned child, she had become a global force for social transformation. She had proven that no child is lost forever. They all just need genuine love and real opportunities. "Thank you," Ashley murmured to the stars, addressing both Mrs. Dorothy and the universe that had conspired to bring a lost orphan to that magical mansion so many years ago. "Thank you for teaching me that our origin does not define our destiny, and that every pain can be transformed into purpose." A shooting star streaked across the sky at that moment, as if it were a cosmic response to her gratitude. Ashley smiled, knowing her journey was far from over. There were still thousands of children in the world who needed to experience the same transformative love she had received. In the following years, Ashley established an international foundation dedicated to replicating the mansion model in developing countries. The foundation trained local educators, and adapted the methods to the specific cultures of each region, always maintaining the fundamental principles of unconditional love and holistic education. One of the Foundation's most ambitious projects was establishing a network of mansions in African countries where AIDS had left millions of children orphaned. Ashley personally supervised the training of the first African educators, carefully adapting the methods to local cultural needs. Love is universal, Ashley explained in her training sessions, but its expression must be culturally appropriate. Every society has its own ways of showing care and nurturing development. Our responsibility is to identify and empower these natural forms. The success of the African mansions surprised even Ashley. The children responded to love and opportunities in the same way she had witnessed in all other cultures, proving that the human need for love and belonging truly transcends all cultural barriers. When Ashley turned 55, she had established herself as one of the world's most respected humanitarians. She received invitations to advise the UN on policies for orphaned children, was appointed a special ambassador for children's rights, and her methods were studied in universities worldwide. But despite all the international recognition, Ashley never forgot her origins. Each year, on the anniversary of her arrival at the original mansion, she spent the entire day working directly with the children, preparing meals, helping with homework, and talking about dreams and fears. "Why do you still do this?" a journalist asked during an interview. "With all your global responsibilities, wouldn't it be more efficient to delegate these everyday tasks?" "Because it's in direct contact with the children that I remember why I do this work," Ashley replied. "Each child teaches me something new about resilience, hope, and human potential. If I lost that contact, I would also lose the essence of what motivates me to continue." During one of these annual days of direct work, Ashley met a 13-year-old girl named Hope who had arrived at the mansion the previous week. The girl was extremely shy and rarely spoke to anyone, communicating mainly through drawings. "May I see your drawings?" Ashley asked gently, sitting down next to Hope during art activity time. Hope hesitated for a moment, then showed a drawing she had made. It was a picture of a small girl surrounded by dark shadows, but with a small light shining at the top of the page. "It's a very beautiful drawing," Ashley said sincerely. "May I ask what the light means?" Hope thought for a moment before answering in a soft voice, "It's hope. Even when everything is dark, there's always a light somewhere." Ashley felt her eyes fill with tears. That child, despite all her pain, had kept hope alive, literally her name and figuratively her deepest essence. "You're right," Ashley said. "There's always a light even in the darkest moments, and sometimes we ourselves become the light for other people." Hope smiled for the first time since she had arrived at the mansion. Do you think I can be the light for someone?" "I'm sure you already are a light for many people," Ashley replied, "and I'm sure that light will grow brighter each day." In the following months, Hope blossomed at the mansion, transforming from a shy, traumatized child into a confident teenager talented in art. Her drawings evolved from dark images to compositions full of color and life, reflecting her own healing journey. "It's amazing," Nathan commented, observing Hope's transformation. "Each child teaches us something different about resilience. Hope showed us that even in the most difficult circumstances, the human spirit can keep hope alive." Ashley agreed, thinking about how each child who passed through the mansion contributed to her own understanding of human potential. "That's why this work never gets repetitive," she said. "Each person is unique, so each transformation is an individual miracle." When Hope turned 18, she had become a talented artist, interested in using her art to help other traumatized children. Her story became yet more proof of the transformative power of unconditional love applied with patience and wisdom. "Ashley," Hope said during her high school graduation party, "when I arrived here, I was lost in the darkness. You taught me to be my own light and also to help others find their light. Now, I want to use my art to continue this work." Ashley embraced Hope with pride, knowing another life had been transformed and that this transformation would multiply through the young artist's future work. When Ashley turned 60, she decided it was time to begin preparing for her own succession. Although she still felt strong and capable, she wanted to ensure the leadership transition would be smooth and well-planned, unlike the situation she had faced when Mrs. Dorothy grew older. During a meeting with the leaders from all the homes in the network, Ashley announced her plans. "I want to begin preparing the next generation of leaders to take on this work. Not because I'm retiring, but because I want to ensure our mission continues strong for many decades." The meeting resulted in the creation of a leadership program where promising young adults from across the network would spend 2 years training intensively with Ashley and other experienced leaders. The program would ensure the core values were faithfully passed on to future generations. Tyler, now a respected social educator running his own regional network of homes, was chosen as one of the program's lead mentors. "It's exciting to see the circle complete," he said during the program launch. "Now I can pass on to other young people what Ashley taught me." One of the first graduates of the leadership program was a young woman named Claire, who had arrived at the original home at 14 as a runaway from multiple shelters. Under Ashley's guidance, she had transformed into a natural leader with a special talent for working with children who had suffered severe trauma. "Claire," Ashley said during a mid-program evaluation, "you have all the qualities needed to lead a home of your own, but more importantly, you have the right heart. That's what makes the real difference in our work." Claire was moved by the recognition. "Ashley, you saved my life when I was a teenager. If I can do the same for other children, I feel I'm honoring everything you taught me." "You're not just honoring what I taught," Ashley replied. "You're creating your own legacy. Every leader should bring their unique perspective to improve our methods." 2 years later, Claire opened her own home in a region where services for children were especially limited. Her innovative approach, combining the traditional principles with modern trauma-informed therapy techniques, produced exceptional results and became a model for other units. When Ashley turned 65, her network had grown to over 200 homes in 30 countries, serving thousands of children annually. During the grand celebration of her birthday, which had become an international conference on alternative childcare, Ashley gave a speech reflecting on her journey. 49 years ago, I was a 16-year-old orphan lost in the forest," Ashley began before an audience of thousands. "Today, I represent a global family united by the love we received and pass on. Our story proves that it doesn't matter where we start. It matters where we choose to go." During the conference, the creation of the Dorothy Ashley Institute for Child Care Research was announced, an institution dedicated to studying and improving methods of alternative care for children. The institute would be directed by a team of former residents of the homes who had become respected researchers and academics. "This institute will ensure we continue to evolve and improve our methods," Ashley explained during the announcement. "Every generation of children we help teaches us something new. We must always be students, not just teachers." That night, after the conference, Ashley walked alone through the original mansion, visiting each floor and remembering her first exploration decades ago. The mansion now housed 15 children of different ages, all at various stages of their transformation journey. On the 8th floor, Ashley found a 12-year-old boy named Matthew who had arrived the week before. The boy was sitting by the window, looking at the forest the same way she had looked so many years before. "Can't sleep?" asked Ashley gently, sitting beside him. "I'm afraid this is a dream," replied Matthew, "that I'll wake up and be back at the home where no one cared about me." Ashley smiled, remembering having the same fears when she arrived. "I understand that feeling. When something too good to be true happens after so much pain, it's natural to be suspicious." "How did you know you could trust this place?" asked Matthew. "I didn't know," admitted Ashley. "I had to learn gradually, one day at a time. But I can assure you of one thing. This place is real, the love here is real, and you deserve all the kindness you're experiencing." Matthew was silent for a moment, processing Ashley's words. You were a child here too?" "Yes, I was. And this place taught me that every person has extraordinary potential, including you, Matthew." Weeks later, Ashley watched Matthew begin to open up and trust, following the same pattern of transformation she had witnessed hundreds of times. It was comforting to know that even after so many years, the model developed by Mrs. Dorothy, continued to work perfectly. "You know," said Claire during a visit to the original mansion, "sometimes I think about how different things would be if you hadn't found this place that morning so many years ago." Ashley reflected on the comment. Perhaps someone else would have found it and developed something similar. Love always finds a way to manifest itself in the world. "But it was you who found it," insisted Claire, "and because of that, thousands of lives have been transformed, including mine." Ashley smiled, feeling deep gratitude for having been chosen by fate to continue the work started by Mrs. Dorothy. Perhaps our responsibility is simply to be available vessels when love seeks a way to express itself in the world. In the following years, Ashley gradually transferred more responsibilities to the new generation of leaders, though she remained active in direct work with children. She developed a role as the network grandmother, a wise figure available for guidance and support when needed. During this phase of her life, Ashley wrote a book documenting her journey and the methods developed over the years. From Orphan to Heart Mother, A Journey of Transformation became an international bestseller and a mandatory handbook for childcare professionals. "I wrote this book," explained Ashley during the launch, "so that others can learn from our successes and mistakes. If our experience can help more children anywhere in the world, then it's worth sharing." The book's proceeds were entirely donated to expand the network of mansions, allowing the opening of 50 new units in countries where resources were especially limited. Ashley was moved to learn that her words were literally transforming into new homes for children in need. When Ashley turned 70, she was officially retired from administrative responsibilities, but continued to live in the original mansion and actively participate in the children's daily lives. Her wisdom and experience became invaluable resources for new generations of educators. "Ashley," said little Dorothy, now a 25-year-old psychology graduate working at one of the network's homes, "you never age. You still have the same energy to play with the children." Ashley laughed, playing with a 6-year-old girl who had recently arrived at the mansion. "It's because the children keep me young. They constantly remind me of the simple joy of discovering the world." During this phase of her life, Ashley became a sort of living legend within the network. Children from all the mansions dreamed of meeting her, and many letters arrived weekly from former residents, telling about their lives and thanking her for her transformative influence. One of those letters, which arrived on her 70th birthday, was particularly special. It came from Jessica, the rebellious girl Ashley had helped decades ago, and who was now a respected doctor. "Dear Ashley," the letter said, "my daughter turned 16 and asked about our family history. I told her about you, about the mansion, about how a rejected orphan became the heart mother who changed my life. My daughter was so impressed that she decided to study social work to continue the legacy you started. Love truly multiplies through the generations." Ashley cried with emotion reading the letter. Knowing that a third generation was being inspired by her work was more rewarding than all the awards and recognition she had received. That night, Ashley went up to the 8th floor and sat in the armchair where Mrs. Dorothy used to knit. Looking at the forest illuminated by the stars, she reflected on the extraordinary journey she had lived. From an orphan lost in the woods, she had become the matriarch of a global family united by love. She had proven that no child is lost forever, that every pain can be transformed into purpose, and that unconditional love is the most powerful force in the universe. "Thank you," murmured Ashley to the stars, addressing Mrs. Dorothy, the universe, and all who had made her transformation journey possible. "Thank you for teaching me that our story does not define our destiny, and that every person has the potential to change the world through love." A gentle breeze came through the window, carrying the scent of forest flowers and the distant sound of children laughing in the rooms below. Ashley smiled, knowing her mission was accomplished, and that the legacy of love would continue to multiply through future generations. End of story. Now tell me what you thought of this story and where you are watching from. If you have something to share with us, leave it in the comments with sincere words. Do you believe Ashley made the right decisions throughout her journey? We would love to read your opinion. Thank you so much for your company. Don't forget to leave your like and especially subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other moving stories.